All right, let's start there with Luginbill, ESPN's Tom Luginbill on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline. A recruiting heater over the last week for Hugh Freeze. 2 5-stars that looked like they were going other places, Luginbill. I mean, that's exactly what Auburn's got to do now.
Yeah, and I just think it's a sign of relevancy. It's a sign of interest. It's a sign of changing perception. Listen, you guys have heard me say this a lot of times. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And prospects can be prone to change their mind as much as they change their underwear. And you've got to realize that in this game, with some of the big dogs that are out there, those that have not committed and then those who have, it's like having a 500-pound marlin on the line, but he's 500 yards away. And getting him in is not going to be easy. So great sign for Auburn if you're an Auburn fan. Now you got to hang on and close. I mean, I think I would say that if this was LSU, Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, anytime this happens, it's a great sign. And now I think the things you've got to do to shore it up is you've got to really show improvement in the fall on the field. I think that resonates because then all of a sudden that transitions to a really positive environment when you get a kid on campus for a game day situation. And now they're coming off the summer, riding a high, seeing improvement on the field. Now the impression's different because you're in that full stadium for a game day atmosphere. So still, as Hugh Freeze and his staff, I think, would tell you, a lot of work to be done, but certainly a positive sign if you're a Tigers fan.
Yeah, not much expectation in year one, but year two is typically, Luginbill, where those elite coaches can do some serious damage. You saw it with Kirby playing for a national championship. Nick had Alabama undefeated in the SEC championship game. And to me, Hugh Freeze is a borderline elite coach. I think he's that talented. I don't know if you would agree with that or not, but I was going to ask you, who will have a bigger factor in the SEC next year? Oklahoma, Texas in their first years, or Auburn in Hugh Freeze's second year?
I might go with Auburn and Hugh Freeze's second year. Certainly would probably take them over Oklahoma, given the current roster profile and where some of Oklahoma's deficiencies are. I think Texas could potentially be a toss-up, although as much as I like their offensive personnel, I'm not convinced that Texas has, LSU, Alabama, Georgia-type dudes on defense, particularly in the front. And we've seen in years past Auburn be chock full of a lot of those guys. And Hugh Freeze has his hands full there, too, because he's got to get those guys back so that he can compete and beat an LSU, an Alabama, and a Georgia. I would agree with you. I think there are some elite components to Hugh Freeze, his approach, not just the X's and O's, but how he deals with kids, how he manages the operation. Certainly he knows that the expectations at Auburn are certainly vastly different than they were at Ole Miss. I think he embraces and accepts that. But you make a really good point, Lance, about that second full calendar year. And it's a little different now because of the transfer portal, where it used to be, you're trying to just hit the ground running and salvage what you can in that first cycle. Well, now you can kind of compensate for what you may lack on the high school side and go out and fulfill in the transfer portal side. But it's that second full calendar year with your entire staff in place. The blueprint has been laid. You know how you operate. You know how you execute. You're not up against the wall trying to pull a rabbit out of a hat. Now you just go into seek and destroy mode. And you have the transfer portal to supplement that. I think that's really positive for any first-year coach. Obviously, would be going into their second year in next cycle.
You're going to be doing some high school classic kickoff games before the college football season starts, and I saw you'll be doing the Carrollton game. I think if I saw this right, that includes future big prospect quarterback Juju Lewis, I believe, but also Alabama's tight end Caleb Odom, the commitment to Alabama guy. I think everybody's a comparison to Brock Bowers these days. Does Caleb Odom bring to the table for Alabama in 2024 what Brock Bowers has brought to Georgia?
I think there are really similar athletic traits. I think the one thing that makes Brock Bowers so unique is, how many teams are we seeing run jet sweeps with their tight end? How many teams are we seeing running bubble screens with their tight end, getting them out in space, actually making people miss, and then having the ability to run somebody over? So that type of versatility at the position is extremely rare. I do see similar athletic traits. And by the way, that game, Jim, that's going to have Ohio State commit quarterback Aaron Nolan versus Juju Lewis, who I would say outside of physical stature, all right, meaning that it's not ideal, he might be the best quarterback prospect that I've done or we've seen alongside probably Trevor Lawrence and Kyler Murray when they both came out of high school. I mean, this is a kid that won a 7A state championship as a 13 going on 14-year-old freshman in high school.
Yeah.
You know, that doesn't happen very often.
And he's a rising sophomore, is that right? Is he?
Yeah.
He's a sophomore this year. Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And if I'm right, the kid on the Ohio State commit in Raiola, I think he's the third guy on the Atlanta quarterback club's all Atlanta list, and he's a rising sophomore. So that tells you what kind of talent this kid has for 2026. So he's probably going to go to Georgia, right?
What's that? Say that
He's
again?
probably going to go to Georgia, right, in 2026?
Oh, let's just say they'll probably be in his top 2 or 3. I will say this, though, about him. He's the only player that we've ever invited to the Under Armour All-America game prior to the completion of his freshman year in high school.
Wow.
Ever.
Wow.
Yeah, that's impressive. ESPN's Tom Luginbill is with us on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline. Michigan is our preview team today. We're doing 40 teams at 40 shows voted by our audience. They picked Michigan number 2. If I told you Michigan lost a road game, I'm going to give you their road games, not Penn State. Or excuse me, not Penn State. You tell me the one that they lost. At Nebraska, at Minnesota, at Michigan State, at Maryland. Now, I know the answer is probably they don't lose any of those, but give me the one that they should worry most about outside of Penn State.
From an offensive firepower standpoint and the ability, if they got into some type of track meet or, having to go up and down the field, it might be Maryland. Just because I think offensively they're going to have some weapons. They've got an experienced quarterback. I don't think Nebraska has an answer at quarterback. I'm not convinced Michigan State has an answer at quarterback. And that just kind of might be the team that's left there that could move the chains, convert third downs, score in the red zone. I don't think Maryland's on the same par with Michigan, clearly with the roster. But if those are the options that you're giving me, that's probably who I'd go with.
Now I'll do we always love to quote the time to kill. Now open your eyes and pretend that Maryland falls right between a road trip to Penn State and a home game against Ohio State. It is the classic trap game setup for them.
Oh yeah, big time. I mean, when you look at that, it's Maryland 3 years ago. You looked at the schedule and you wrote that down as a W and you wrote it in ink. Well, now you probably write it in pencil, right? Because it's not something you can just throw your pants on and roll out of the locker room and walk over Maryland with your 2s and 3s. So it is a trap game. And I think the one thing about Michigan's football team is they're a mature football team. And I think they know what's at stake. Clearly, they were embarrassed a year ago in the college football playoff. They've got their quarterback back, which is, a distinct advantage over in Ohio State. But so does Maryland. So, yeah, does it have trap game written all over it? It absolutely does. I still think, though, that there's Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State, whatever order you want to put them in, they're all 3 still a cut above everybody else in the conference.
And for the record, Maryland only lost in Ann Arbor by 7 last year. But Taulia Tagovailoa, the quarterback you were talking about with the experience, we were talking about him earlier, and Dunaway brought up the fact that there's a rumor out there that he was offered $1.5 million NIL to come to an SEC school. I was just going to, we talked about, protecting the football has not been one of his A-plus things, but he got a little bit better last year, but 26 turnovers over the last 3 years. How many schools in the SEC do you think he could start for?
Well, I don't know. Will Levis threw a ton of interceptions. Anthony Richardson threw interceptions.
We haven't seen Taulia projected in the top 5, though.
Yeah. But Levis is going to start in the NFL.
A ton of interceptions. I saw that, and I screenshotted it, sent it to my pal Barrett Salee, my partner on Sundays, and I said, yeah, right. He's still at Maryland.
Yeah.
Give me a break. Come on, man. I mean, is he worth $1.5 million? No. Do I think that he could play for a lot of SEC teams? Yeah. Do I think right now, if you said, hey, who would you take, Taulia or Joe Milton? That would be a toss-up for me, because I think Joe Milton is one of the most physically talented guys in the country and the most streaky, inconsistent, inaccurate guy as well. So I think that one would be a toss-up there.
What about in-state?
At Kentucky?
What about in-state, though? What about Alabama and Auburn right now? Is Taulia better than any options they've got?
He'd be better at Auburn. I think so. Yeah. At Alabama, is he as talented as some of the guys that they may have in the fold? Probably not, but he's played a lot more. And I think that there's value in that, and you can't gloss that over. I think he would be a big upgrade over Peyton Thorne.
I don't know how many times we'll have you on before the season starts. So I want to ask you this while I have you, because we're talking Michigan today, and they play a certain style of football. Do you think the new clock rules are going to shorten some games considerably enough where it plays into teams like Michigan's favor, Georgia's favor, who, we saw them shorten the game against Tennessee and dominated that game? Alabama's going back to that style of football, we're told. Do you think we'll have a considerable shorter games where it plays to those type of teams that love to run and control the clock?
Yes, if you can convert third downs and extend drives. If you don't, it's no different, really. And I say that having just broadcasted the XFL twice in the last 4 years, where a lot of those rules are very, very similar. And we were able to get games down to 2 hours and 40 minutes. I don't think that's going to happen in college football. Don't get me wrong. But it's still going to come down to whether you have possession of the ball and can convert third down. So whether you're spreading it out, whether you're running it, whether you're 3rd and 3 or less in the spread, or 3rd and 3 or less in 22 personnel, that will have an impact on the clock, in my opinion. So, I think it remains to be seen. It's going to be fascinating to see. I know all of us who are broadcasting games are actually really excited about this, because the thing guys, it's just gotten out of hand in terms of what we're doing with replays, and we're replaying every play, and we're having this stoppage and that stoppage, and a lot of it's just unnecessary. So I'm actually looking forward to seeing how this affects teams that aren't up-tempo teams versus ones that aren't. And by the way, Jim, did you get demoted to the kiddie table? Like, why are you on to the side and Lance is heading things up?
Well,
I'm not heading things up, Luginbill.
This is our 500th show, and in process of 500 shows, we debate some things. One of them, we decided that we should go with the brains, looks, and then me. And so we've got 3 cameras, and camera A on Brown makes him look absolutely great. This is the best lit best camera, and no matter how good the camera is, I'm not good looking. So we put me on the worst camera, right?
Well, I'm looking at you right now, and Ryan's got to learn some television etiquette. As he's leaning back in his chair, he's not even on the screen.
Well,
obviously, right there, that's an uptick in spike in the rating.
Yeah, that's the shot you're seeing. That's not the shot the fine people at home are seeing, Luginbill. You're getting a different feed.
Oh, that's not what I'm hearing.
Hey, so let me ask you about A&M real quick, because I am fascinated to see the dynamic between Jimbo and Bobby Petrino. I think everybody is. But for the first 5 years in College Station, I didn't have an expectation really for Jimbo Fisher. I'm just not a big fan. But for whatever reason, I think this team's going to be sneaky good this year. If they get really good quarterback play out of Wigman, and Bobby Petrino is the guy calling the plays, how shocked would you be if they actually make Atlanta for the first time?
Not shocked at all. Making Atlanta, I think a lot of things would have to happen. I would probably better phrase that as if all of those things happen, they are going to be a problem for everybody that they play. Right, getting to Atlanta, obviously, you're going to have to navigate that. But I agree with you, Lance. I think it's the most fascinating, I guess you could say, coaching dynamic on one staff that we have in college football right now. I thought Jimbo Fisher did a horrendous job of answering that question at SEC Media Days. Whether he's running it or Bobby's running it or it's a collaboration or whatever it is, it doesn't matter what the truth is. Just tell the people, I'm out. I'm going to run the football team. He's coaching the offense, and then let it be. To maintain the ambiguity just furthers speculation, and then all of a sudden, if you get a 3-and-out or you turn the ball over, what's everybody going to assume? Oh, now there's meddling going on, and there's all this and that. Just put your stamp on it and say, he's the guy. I mean, it's a tried and true offense. He's played outstanding offensive football everywhere he's been, Bobby Petrino, that is. I do think the quarterback play is going to be significantly improved. I know what the roster profile is. I think that's why most Texas A&M fans are so disappointed over the last 4 to 5 years. because it's an 8-4 program with 10+ win level players. And maybe this is the change, obviously, that people were hoping needed to happen. But we might be sitting here in late November, guys, and giving Jimbo Fisher a ton of credit for finally doing what he needed to do and stepping back, having input, being the head coach, running the football team, and letting Bobby Petrino do what he does.
You guys love Luginbill when he comes to the show. If you wonder how much we love him, if I'm not mistaken, he was on our first show.
Yes.
He was he was on our 1-year anniversary show, one year after that. And now you're on our 500th show. It's like anytime we have a major show, we ask you to come on, Lugs. That should tell you how we feel about you.
Well, I appreciate that. You guys know how I feel about y'all because not only do we have a great time talking ball, but we just have a great time talking life, right?
That's right.
Pop culture, TV shows, movies.
Did you see Oppenheimer?
Just don't ask me. Oh, yeah. Have you?
I have not yet, no. LC has.
I haven't. I was going to go last night. I can't carve the 3 hours.
You saw it, Rockstar?
I saw it at the beach on Wednesday. I was telling Lunsford about this. I really enjoyed it. I did not like the past, present, present, past, present, past, present, past.
The Christopher Nolan FX.
Like where it's just there's just a lot of
non-linear. Does it all the time.
Yeah, all the time.
That's the only thing.
There's a lot of that, and it's longer than 3 hours. But it goes fast. Like it keeps. I think one of the reasons why it's good is everybody in their lifetime, or at least in our cycle, has heard of J. Robert Oppenheimer. But a lot of people may not know exactly what took place, what he did, how the thing came together. And I thought it was really well done. Mission Impossible is ridiculous. I don't understand how that guy just keeps making a movie that's better than the previous one he made when he's 7 in. I mean, it's unbelievable. So go see Dead Reckoning Part 1. Really good.
Is the motorcycle jump crazy?
It's crazy when you look behind the scenes. I don't know if you've ever gone on YouTube or Googled it. But
we saw it
6 times. He didn't just do it once and they said, hey, we got to catch this the first time. They did it 6 times. So, yeah, it's nuts, man. It's crazy. And the car chase in Rome is ridiculous, especially when you see how they set it up with what he's handcuffed to. Not to give too much away, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I can't wait to see that, actually. I think I am going to go to the theater and see that one.
Yeah.
I've heard nothing but good about it.
If I was him, I would be handcuffed to Margot Robbie because she's bringing in the bucks right now.
Man, you ain't. She's bringing in the bucks everything she's in.
Yeah.
And deservedly so.
All right, he is ESPN's Tom Luginbill. Go follow him on Twitter, @Tom Luginbill. You'll see him soon enough, not on just on those high school games, but on a college football stadium near us, and we cannot wait. Luginbill, thank you for the time. Have a great week.
You bet, guys. Have a great week.